Welcome back to the online Women's Basketball Summit. Today's guest is Susan Altman. Susan and I are going to be talking about the AAU culture through the eyes of a parent, and she is a holistic health coach, so we're also going to touch on nutrition a little bit. So Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So let's dive right in and talk about your playing career as a basketball player, and then we'll kind of transition into how you became a holistic health coach.
Okay, so hi. I grew up in South Burlington, Vermont, and from there I realized I needed a little bit more city. So I went to school at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut. I loved it there. Fabulous school. I was a 4-year basketball player there. I started 3 of my 4 years and was a captain my senior year. And overall, it was the most fantastic experience that I've had.
Nice. Did you play AAU basketball when you were in high school?
It's a good question. When I told you I grew up in Burlington, Vermont, there was no AAU. I'm dating myself a little bit. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s, early 90s, and there was no AAU to speak of. We all played 3 sports. And when it was basketball season, we played basketball. But there was no spring basketball. There was no summer basketball. It was basketball in the winter. So I did not have my first experience into AAU until my children.
All right, we will touch on that in a little bit about how AAU is this year round. But let's talk about how you're a holistic health coach. Talk about your journey into becoming certified with that.
Okay, so when I have 3 children, and when my youngest son was about 4 in preschool, I thought, you know what, I've got some time. And it's a lot of time. And there's only so much you can exercise. So I thought, I really need to go back to work. So one of my friends mentioned the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And she said, you would love this. And as a former athlete, you really realize the importance of food in your life. So I decided to sign up for the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I graduated in 2010. It was the most fabulous thing. I actually recommend it for anybody, especially an athlete, because you learn a lot about yourself, and you also learn a lot about what to eat and different types of food and how to cook for yourself and all these really important things. So so I got certified, and then I started my practice in 2010 and still do it today. And it's going really well.
So who do you work with within your practice? And let's basically just focus on like the athletes you see. Like, what do you talk about with the athletes?
So athletes have become my focus. In the beginning, I worked a lot with mostly women who would come to me and say, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. And I realized quickly that I appreciated more the people who came to me, the athletes, and said, I just want to feel better in my body and learn how to perform at a higher level. So I gravitated towards that. So I work with athletes. I work with a few professional athletes, and I also work with athletes as young as 11 or 12, and just trying to help them understand that it's really important to see food as fuel and not see food in a way that's scary. In order to perform well and to be able to play in multiple games a day, you have to have the proper nutrition. And it starts with breakfast, and you have to figure out what foods give you the most energy and help you get through a game to the best of your ability.
Nice. All right. So let's, you have 3 kids. Obviously, one of them, a girl, plays AAU basketball now. When they have games like 5, 6, 7 games during the weekend, what kind of advice and tips can you share and shed light on to help your daughter perform at her best regarding like nutrition and food as fuel for the AAU weekend?
Okay, it's a great question. So it's interesting. My 3 children eat very differently and require different foods to help them. My daughter and my youngest son, they don't love breakfast. They wake up and they can't really get going with it. They need something a little bit lighter. And I always say you could potentially have 3 games today and 3 games tomorrow. You have to fuel yourself. So what we've kind of decided on, or what works for those two, is a smoothie. And it's a protein packed smoothie for sure. And it has some greens in it, but it's fruit based, but with a protein powder, and it works for them. I also put in yogurt, Greek yogurt in there, so they can get even more protein. And it just helps get their metabolism going and get them starting to feel hungry, so that if we have a little bit of time, then they can eat something else. Like right before, like an hour before or something, they have maybe some toast with peanut butter or something. It really depends on the day and how many games, but breakfast is the most important. My middle son loves breakfast, and he eats so much food you cannot even begin to imagine. And that works for him. He'd rather have 3 kinds of meals. So say you have an hour between games. People ask me this all the time. What should I eat if I only have an hour between the games? The most important thing is to make sure that you're hydrating. So a lot of water. Some kids can't eat anything. They're too hyped up from their game, and they have another game in an hour, so they really can't eat something. I really recommend that they try an apple or an orange or something, but definitely hydrate. If you have more time, say 2 or 3 hours, which happens a lot on tournament days, then a lot of teams will go out and have a meal together as a bonding and whatever. The biggest thing I'd say is no fried food. Fried food or heavy steak. Don't eat a burger. It just takes a long time to digest. Some kids say to me, well, what if I have a salad with chicken? Fine. It sounds like something would be great, having a salad with chicken, but it's not really giving you enough. You need to have some pita bread with it, have some soup with it, some sort of a carbohydrate with it, because it seems like a salad with chicken would be very healthy, but it doesn't necessarily fuel you the way you need. Pizza is probably the most popular in between. I'd say like a pizza and a salad is probably the most popular thing that kids do the best at. It digests quickly, and there you go. So just remember, on multiple tournament days, you have to fuel your body, and you have to give yourself time to figure out what works the best.
Yeah. So the biggest takeaways I just heard is, number one, during a long weekend of tournament games, eat breakfast, depending on what you like, but eat breakfast, hydrate, and just make sure you're fueling your body if you're playing all day.
Definitely.
All right. So this is what I've been wanting to talk to you about. We'll get away from kind of the nutrition a little bit. So your daughter plays AAU. Mm-hmm. How long has she been playing AAU?
Since 4th grade.
All right. So
going into 11th grade.
All right. Long time. So from the time she started to the time now, what is the difference, for the good and the bad, that you have seen with AAU in the sports culture with girls basketball?
Okay. So the biggest thing that I've noticed is she has stayed with the same program the whole time, except for 1/2 of a season. A fall season, she left the team and then ended up coming back. The thing that I've noticed is that it's now moving away from player development into winning at all costs. And I do not like it. I think it's not helping the athlete. And I think that what's happening is that certain coaches and certain programs are forgetting the basics of teaching girls how to play basketball. Everybody seems to play AAU from a young age, and they're much more skilled than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And it's certainly when I played basketball. When I look at what I was doing in college as opposed to what Amanda is doing now going into her junior year, you can't even compare. So the skill level is much higher. But I think with that, they're not learning fundamental team basketball. They're not learning how to play together. And the teams are changing very quickly. There's turnover because the loyalty's out the window. Everybody wants to be with programs that win. You go on a season and you're not the best, then coaches make a change. Parents get upset. They want to go on a winning team. And I think people are forgetting what basketball really is and what it means to be on a team. And I think the AAU is not helping with that, because they're just churning out, I guess they just want to churn out championships. Yeah. And it's not really working.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a con, obviously, with the AAU. I mean, when I played, if we went to a tournament for the weekend, you win or you're going home. It's not like you're guaranteed 5, 6, or 7 games. So obviously, the culture when I played was a little different. I mean, we wanted to win and we played the better players. But when we were in practices, we would, I had a great coach. We would obviously work on player development, working on the fundamentals, working on teams. So I guess again, there's good and the bad. Do you find that with all the practices these kids have nowadays, I feel like there's a clinic like once a week working on something that they're focusing on the fundamentals and they're focusing on the right things, or do you think the practice atmosphere and the clinics could be better served to help these kids develop?
See, it's a really good question. And I see a lot of benefit with the clinics because in as speaking for my daughter, I don't know how other programs do it, but for my daughter's program that she's involved with, they do clinics together as a team. So they're in that environment and they're bonding in that way. And they're working on general skills. They're not necessarily doing skill specific. For example, if my daughter plays a 4, like a 3 or a 4, she's not working on post moves. She's not working on point guard skills or guard skills, just dribbling. She's sort of doing all of it. So I think the clinics are beneficial to give them the confidence level to bring this stuff into a game. But that being said, you don't always see, you see kids who are phenomenal in clinics. They can shoot from anywhere. They're doing all these crazy things. But in a game, when there's a defender on them, they freeze up and they can't do anything. So it's one of those things where I don't think there's any trade-off for team practice and going against live defense, but there's definitely benefit to working on your game and practicing shooting and your ball handling skills. So it's, there's pros and cons to everything, as you said.
Like I said, I wanted you on the call because I want, like, the AAU culture now. I want it from the eyes of a parent that probably is at, an AAU game every weekend. So again, when you and I played, I mean, we both played in college. I think parents in general, parents in the bleachers, the way they are acting and communicated with their athletes and coaches has definitely changed from, let's say, 15, 20 years ago. So what advice would you give to a parent of a girl AAU basketball player? Like, how to behave, how should they act with their athlete, whether they have a good or a bad game?
Because of the culture of AAU, we as parents are spending a tremendous amount of time and energy and resources with our children and putting this towards the success of the program. So when you're spending a lot of money and spending a lot of time away from your home, you tend to hyper focus on your athlete more than you would, say, 20 years ago. With that hyper focusing, you start to see things that might not actually be happening. You start to get frustrated with playing time. You start to think that your athlete is much better than they are. And I think that's probably the biggest problem, is that parents think that they're dealing with a high D1 level UConn player, when in reality, they would be really good in Division III and working hard, and they would play a lot and be more successful. So I think that parents need to take a step back, maybe in some cases a few steps back, and understand who their athlete is in their kid, what they're dealing with, and what the kid's goals are. Does your kid want to play at the highest level? Does your kid want to have a rigorous Division I schedule? Or does your kid want something a little less? They want to play basketball, but they might not want to play every day, all the time, and make that the number one. So you have to have a conversation. You have to be realistic, and you have to make sure that you're in a program that aligns with the same values that you have. There are many, many, many programs to choose from, so you don't need to settle. So you need to go into an environment where your athlete is respected by the coach, and vice versa. A coach that you can respect and that you like their style, and that they're in it for reasons that align with yours. And I think that if you do that, you're going to be fine. But it's the parents that start behaving very badly and they're screaming at their kids, they're screaming at the coaches, that it's just not the right fit. And their kid looks freaked out and nobody's happy and the kids are tight, they can't play freely. So it's really important to get the right fit. Definitely.
That's some great advice. So I think one of, I don't know if the word is problem, but in high school, like, the player is a star. Like, she's the best player in the team. She plays all the time. She scores all the time. But then she can get on an AAU program and she's not the best player. So her playing time is not going to be what it is in high school. And I think parents in general need to know that again, high school, you might be the star. AAU, you're not going to be the star. Do you want to touch upon that at all, being that your daughter plays high school? And I do believe she is a starter. And then I have no clue what kind of playing time she gets when she's playing AAU. So if you want to expand upon that.
I'd love to. So Amanda, my daughter, has been very clear from the beginning about her goals to play in college. She wants to play in college, but she wants to play Division III. She's clear about that. She says, I really want to play, and I know that I'll be the most successful in Division III. So she communicated that with her coach, and she was sort of put into a category of, okay, in these showcases, she doesn't need to play as much because all the coaches that are here are Division I schools. So if she's not interested in that, then she doesn't need to play as much. So that was a hard lesson for me to learn and to understand. I appreciate that she was honest about it, because yeah, she does start in her high school and she pretty much plays every minute of the game in high school. In AAU, she is a post player and she comes in. She's the first sub for a post player, but she doesn't start. So if, depending on what colleges are there, and the two post players that are ahead of her want to play Division I, they're going to play most of the game. So in hindsight, is this the best program for her? Probably not. But now she's going into 11th grade and the team is formed, and she has some amazing friendships with her teammates that will last her the rest of her life. So this is where she is, and she's accepted it, and she knows that high school she'll play all the time, and she does these clinics and she loves those. But is it the best program? That's why I'm giving you the advice, everyone out there, make sure it's the right fit and that your goals are aligned with the coaches if you want to see your kid play. If they're fine to sit on the bench a lot, then great, so be it.
Yeah. So I think that's great that Amanda has like a goal. She clearly communicated to you and the coach kind of what her vision is, where she wants to play in college. I don't think a lot of kids do that. So Amanda's not your typical girl though. So I think that's some great advice. So I think you just nailed it on the head, but just to kind of circle back. So what is the best advice you could give another parent about AAU basketball?
Relax, talk to your kid, be honest with your kid, and know that you're going to be spending a lot of time and money. Accept it and make sure that you understand what's expected of you before the season starts, so that when you get in there and it's a high pressure environment and there's a lot of players, there's a lot of coaches, and there's a lot of anxiety, that you are calm. And your calmness will translate to your child, because they're going to see you over on the bench. And if you're and you're mad or you're angry, then that's not going to help them. They're going to be embarrassed, and coaches are going to notice it, and it's not good for them. So as long as everyone's upfront and honest, and that's not necessarily the way the AAU world wants to work, but as long as you can communicate that and stay true to it, then you should be fine, and you'll be relaxed, and you'll have a good time, and you'll enjoy watching your kid play.
Yeah, I think sometimes the parents forget that they're role models to their kids, and how they see their parents act on the sidelines is going to be a big indicator of how their attitude is on the bench. So Susan, I've enjoyed talking with you. I think you gave some great advice for the parents out there. Is there anything else you want to add before we end the call?
I think basketball is the greatest sport in the world to me. I love it. I love everything about it. And it's important, just remember, what you're doing and that how fast these years go by. I can't believe that my daughter's, she's going into her 11th grade year. It feels like she was just in 4th grade, just starting this process. So make sure you enjoy it and enjoy the ride, take the highs with the lows with the highs, and be gracious and be humble, and make sure that you tell your kids to be good teammates, because that's the most important thing.
So that's some great advice for the parents. I hope they listen, take it all in. Susan, it was a pleasure chatting with you. And I will see you tomorrow for boxing, or Wednesday, actually.
Perfect. Can't wait.